Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Good morning, everybody.
Well, hello.
Happy Friday.
I'm Jim Rhoads. This is my wife and business partner, Michelle. We never introduce ourselves. Our names are on the screen, but in case there's somebody in the next room, I'm Jim and this is Michelle. But happy Friday.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show.
Yes.
We have a pretty meaty subject for today. And as often happens, this one just came from Facebook. In fact, I think, Michelle, all of our topics for next week came from recent Facebook threads.
We have our, speaking of, we have our lineup for next week already set up on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We have Mr. Gene Daughtry,
mm-hmm.
and he's going to be joining us to talk a little bit more about
he has a thread. He commented on the poll that we put out there about, in this time, should we be clamping down, or just really asked, are people clamping down? Are you being more flexible? And obviously we talked to Russell more about that on Wednesday. And now we'll have Gene offer his perspective because, there's some stuff that you and I've talked about on that subject from before that ties into what Gene said. And so we'll be able to talk about, all those things and how they all fit together. In fact, our conversation today kind of ties into the same thing. In a way.
And then Wednesday, Seth Merrifield is going to be joining us
from Alabama. We never had Seth on the show. We haven't had Gene on the show.
Communicate with both of them, but haven't had him on the show yet. And then Friday, we have Mr. Justin Wallman from Ohio is going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking about payment extensions. I'm sorry. We've got notes across the room, and I cannot read them when I have my glasses on. We're trying something new, so I don't have to look down and see stuff, and so I can just be looking up. But unfortunately, I can't read that. From across the room. Oh, well.
Yeah. So our topic for today.
And good morning, George, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Happy Friday, George. I reached out to George this morning by text and asked his permission to share one of his responses on the Facebook thread that we're kind of going to take on today because, he said something that was quite interesting, and it's kind of just wanted to remind me of a thread. And by the way, this topic today, we could probably do multiple things. Multiple episodes.
So you may hear about it again, and it won't be the same stuff. Right. But it'll be an extension of the conversation if you guys see this topic come up again.
Yeah. So today we, in response to a thread, we just wanted to throw out there this idea of mixing retail with Buy Here, Pay Here.
On the same lot.
Yeah, on the same lot. I mean, there are dealers that do it, different locations. And so
we see it all the time. And Facebook, we get a lot of our topics from conversations that are started on different streams. And this, as it comes up, every so often, actually, I probably see it come up once a week or at least once a month, something along this line. So.
Well, and of course, we do work with clients, dealers who are new to the business often. And so that this is a topic that we cover with them because it's an important thing to consider.
Can I start with a question?
Please.
Why would you want to?
For me, that's mostly about stratification. And I think that's an important thing to consider at this time, especially because, when we pay a certain amount of rent for our building and we pay a certain amount of, payroll to open the doors and have a business, then if we have the space for it on the lot, it's just a way to kind of stratify your offering, to be able to kind of have different layers of offering and be able to reach more customers. If you're successful in attracting a customer with a little higher credit score, for example, you might like to have a solution for them. So it's really, for me, it's about optimizing our space. However, there are challenges associated with doing this. And this is why the thread was, pretty active, and we won't be able to cover it all here today, but I'm just here to say, I have direct experience with this. I had a Buy Here, Pay Here lot myself, and I opened a retail store that was separate from the Buy Here, Pay Here store, whole separate story. We've covered that in prior episodes, so we won't dig into that too much today, but I'm just saying I come from that. We've made recommendations to clients. Keep in mind, there's a couple things that happen here. You're either a buy here, pay here dealer that's considering adding retail. Often we work with retail dealers that are considering adding buy here, pay here. So we talk through the idea, should it be on the same lot? It can be, but just there's some things to navigate in doing that. And one of the things that came up too was the idea of, which customers are you sending where?
Yeah. And it is something that comes up frequently for us in coaching because, especially if someone already is in a retail space of, and like, I want to add buy here, pay here, that it's, I've heard it enough of the conversations to know that there are some real challenges. There are benefits, but there are some real challenges to it. And George is like, why would you do it? Cash flow. That's something we can talk about a pro to why you would do both of those things.
So let's quickly clarify, like for our conversation today, are we talking about the same car? Like we just have,
that's an inventory. The biggest challenge that I've heard you talk about is that it's, so
well, you're in some dangerous legal
you really do. So when you have a price on a car,
and by the way, we do not offer legal advice.
We don't. We
are not attorneys.
No, but it's when you have a price on a car that it's regardless of whether or not it's a retailer or buy here, pay here. One of the questions that comes up is, can you change the price based on whether or not they're buying it this way or this way? Answer.
Well, you can't change the price. Well, you run the risk of getting yourself in some serious hot water with regulators. And here's why. I've heard different names for it. In fact, this morning I looked it up just to get a clarification on the definition. I come up with like 3 different names. So let's clarify first what something called, I heard it first called 20 years ago, I heard it called imputed interest. Okay. So let's be careful about this one, because what happens is, and again, we're not attorneys, so go look this up or ask your attorney, get with your state
laws
association.
Are a little bit different everywhere, but
this stuff can vary a little bit by state. I think
in general,
I think this imputed interest really is going to be across the country. And really, if you think about it, regardless of what's legal, you're really stepping into a dangerous area from a practical business matter. Here's the rub. If you have a car on the lot that's priced at, $15,000, and somebody comes in and offers you $11,000, it was priced on your buy here, pay here lot at $15,000. Somebody offers you $11,000, and you're making a few bucks, and you clear some money, and so you take cash and you sell it for $11,000. Well, what the regulators may look at in that situation is, well, wait a minute, you must have been charging this finance customer. Not only were you charging them 24% interest as an example, but you were also charging them an extra $4,000 of markup. Everybody follow that? Like you're charging them some additional markup, which is apparently associated with financing. And if the combination of those puts you in excess of the usury limits, you got a big problem potentially. And this is, again, as a non-attorney speaking, imagine what it looks like if you violate usury rules and suddenly you would be asked to give whatever discount you offered to cash for that cash customer. Imagine having to give that same discount.
Has that happened before, Jim?
It has to have. We didn't search, and we're not attorneys over here.
Well, you hear about dealers that there's some kind of retroactive something that happens, and it can slam. You talk about cash flow. That was like you've eaten up everything by paying out something.
And of course,
if you're still in business.
Yeah. And we're not over here trying to share case law or anything like that. But I've heard anecdotally over the years about this kind of thing. But regardless, doesn't it just make common sense that if we're doing that and we did get ourselves in some hot water for it with a regulator, imagine having to go back and retroactively give that same discount to every customer that you finance by your payer for however long they decide is appropriate.
Well, and I would say, people might say, states are not going to do that. I come from a family who owned a business. My dad owned a janitorial business. All growing up, we cleaned movie theaters, and he was in probably 10 different states. And all of our contractors were, all the people that worked with us were subcontractors. And so they paid their own taxes and all of this. Well, the state of California got a hold of that and said, they are employees. We're going to retroactively tax you all of this payroll tax in this state. And once they did that, half of the other states my dad was in just followed suit.
Right.
And so it put him out of business in a heartbeat. And so the idea that a state wouldn't require you to retroactively do anything is hogwash, because it happens.
Yeah. And I think, we just have to recognize the challenge in that. So again, what we're really talking about is one car on the lot, and you're offering it for both. You have it available for buy here, pay here. You price it to some people for buy here, pay here. If you've also publicized that price online, now you got even.
We really encourage you never to publicize a price or any of that online.
So you can just see the problem though, is if I've got one price and now I discount it and offer it to a consumer at a lower price because they paid cash, then whatever that delta is, the difference between those numbers is effectively, some would construe that as an interest charge. So we're getting a little too deep. Like it's understand that's one of the challenges with having.
That's a big one though. It's a big one because it can get you probably in the most trouble.
Right.
And like the kind of trouble that could put you in a really precarious position in your business.
So the way that we would advise our clients to avoid that hazard is to never mix the inventory. Like you have a dedicated inventory for retail business. And
so it is possible, but they're just kind of separate
very
cars.
Clearly separated.
Very separated.
So the way I've always described it over the years is imagine having a group, of green flag cars. Like they're clearly marked differently. We can offer in-house financing on these cars. We cannot. Okay.
And then vice versa. We can offer, you can buy this for cash, but we cannot offer financing on that because you would have to finance. Well, you could, but you would have to finance it at the price that it was listed at. Yeah.
And I think the most sensible separation on that is going to be around ACV, which is some of the questions that came up in the thread was, so I heard one of the gentlemen that's chimed in said, I was thinking about it mostly for a higher ACV car that I can't really afford to finance, doesn't fit in my business model, my business strategy. I can't stand that much cash and deal. So it's kind of cash flow, because I think what George could be referring to here is when he raises the cash flow thing is like some dealers would choose to take a lesser markup and do a cash deal, so call it indirect, where you're sending it to a third party. Credit acceptance is one out there that if you enroll with them, you can send paper their directions, right? And we've worked with dealers who do both buy here, pay here, and credit acceptance in their operation. So, but we also saw the headaches that were created through that, right? And so the challenge of how do I decide which deals go credit acceptance? And then Tommy on the thread, we'll show a post or a comment from George Spat in just a moment, because I think the other challenge becomes from a practical standpoint, from a business strategy standpoint. How does one make a judgment about which deals we keep in-house and which deals we send to a third party? So again, if it's a more cut and dry deal, if it's ACV driven, these green flag cars, which might happen to be your lower ACV cars, we can offer in-house financing on those. We don't discount those for cash. We never, I'm sorry, those cars, unfortunately,
I know you love this car, but it's like, it's not one of the ones that we can offer for cash.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I cannot help you on the price either.
Unless they want to pay the full price that's listed at, they could do that.
Yeah. Very rarely. But
very rarely.
The consumer can do that, but that's one of the challenges of doing that. But it's like, we don't advise advertising price on our buy here, pay here inventory. Like it's usually not a price driven transaction, or the consumer's not price motivated. So we typically don't recommend that. But again, you start to understand as we talk through this ourselves, like the different nuances of everything that's happening here and why it's not quite that simple. So, but I think if you would make life simpler if you kept those things well separated, even on the same lot, kept them flagged differently, segregated on the lot differently. Because when you begin to try to offer a single car or single inventory for both, that's where these hazards come in. And
Mhm.
listen, Michelle, I know we got dealers listening today. This is hogwash. We do it all the time. We discount these cars for cash, and I'm not going to miss gross profit. Somebody offers cash. Well, it's okay. Just understand the dangerous legal waters you're stepping
Well,
into.
and in a world today where we are, we're watching really closely what the CFPB is doing and what they're saying predatory. I mean, how and that's what they're looking at is any kind of predatory practices. That you you may be able to do it right now, but I don't know about if anyone out there has ever had something where they've been made an example
Oh,
to
sure.
others.
Yeah.
And we watch that happen in the news frequently where
Mhm.
it's like someone gets caught and and it's like you can't do that and other people are doing it all around them, but they get caught and it's like, no, you can't do that. And they get slammed
Yeah.
in the
And
process.
it's
And so, just the fact that I've been doing it for a long time doesn't mean you aren't running a risk.
And I think the price for breaking this rule can be a heavy one. I mean, my own
Really
perspective,
heavy,
and this is
yeah.
just coming from a consultant advisor who was a
Mhm.
buy here, pay here dealer. I just see that this is hazardous territory. And I think that, dealers just need to be
We may
careful.
pull like Steve Levine or someone like that on the show maybe and have a conversation about what
Sure.
that looks like so that we can really get into the
Anytime.
nitty
If you're
gritty of
listening,
that.
Steve, you're welcome
Yeah,
anytime to come
yeah,
and add to this
absolutely.
conversation, because we think dealers need to be
Mhm.
apprised of kind of the danger that is, kind of offering these discounts for cash. But then if we kind of get away from that, we say that's not what we're doing. We're
Okay.
offering two different kinds
Two
of
different cars.
inventory, two
Yeah.
different segments of inventory. Then now you can see that it lets me in my marketing, if I am successful in attracting a customer who's qualified for third party financing and they've chosen a car that, again, it's a
Mhm.
qualification thing. Now you're
Mhm.
back to your lead management and how do you qualify the customers and who do you place where? So that's a different subject for a different show. But it's like if you navigate that and you have somebody land on a car that you've succeeded in your advertising, attracting customers, got a little better qualifications and they can qualify for your third party financing, then wonderful. You pick up a deal that they weren't gonna buy your pay your inventory. And so if you can pick up that business, and so to me, that's what it comes back to is optimizing your facility, the
Mhm.
expense that you have associated with operating a business. If you can optimize that and be able to appeal to multiple tiers, I think that if you've got the real estate for it, to be able to reach multiple tiers so that you can satisfy almost any kind of consumer who came through your doors.
Mhm.
That's really the main thing that I'm working towards. So you want to share George's comments there, and
Yes,
let's
I
kind of
do.
tackle
Let's
that
do that.
element.
So George, the question.
The question was, and I don't have it here in front of me, but basically the question was, anybody having any success mixing retail and
Yeah.
buy here, pay here on the
So
same lot?
George says, I have dealer clients who have tried it. The issue they run into was the outside lender approved the good ones. That left the others for buy here, pay here. It is called adverse selection. Some call it having one foot on shore and the other one in the
Right.
canoe.
So that's an interesting analogy. Like
Yeah.
to me, it's and I reached out to George and made sure he was okay for us to share that. I didn't ask Tommy, and Tommy, if you're upset with me for sharing your name on the morning show, you can call me. I have my number.
Yeah.
But no, we just so you want to read Tommy's response? There?
Tommy said 100% tried it, then wondered why I wanted to give my best customers away and watch them pay more.
Yeah. So there's again what you
Yeah.
hear in that thread, though. There's an assumption in all of that, which
Mhm.
is that this is talking about the same inventory. Like this customer
Mhm.
qualifies. If they qualify third party, then that's a different thing. But it's like if I can satisfy that customer with my current inventory and they fit my profile, and it's a customer who could be with me a very long time. If I'm thinking long term, which is challenging for a lot of dealers to do right now, is think long term. And so this
Mhm.
is part of why we've been bringing forward some of these topics to say, some of the most successful dealers out there have had ups and downs. They played a long
Mhm.
game. They're still in business through many decades. And so when you can play that long game and think about that, then obviously you have to really look at your own business strategy. If I can take $1,000 gross profit today versus a buy here, pay here deal with plenty of markup and interest associated with it, obviously every dealer's got to make that judgment for themselves as to
Cash
where that
flow,
fits in terms of their business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a cash management strategy and so on. But we just think it's problematic. And I hope, did we leave anything out of those subjects there? I think, we just really wanted to kind of bring forward the idea that
imputed, implied, implicit.
I get quite reading myself. I think we covered
ACV, green
flags, so that's
flags,
really about cost of car. So, when I think about cost of car, that would be the primary separation. If I were going to separate cash cars, if I was going to have an inventory of both cash cars and buy here, pay here, that primary separation would be based on ACV. It would be based on the kind of down payment I typically get. And if I carry some $15,000 cost cars and a $2,000 down payment puts me at a $13,000 ACV or a certain $13,000 cash in deal, some of us just can't afford that, right? It's just not, it doesn't fit our business strategy. We can't afford to tie up that much cash in any one contract. And so now to me, but it helps us reach a customer that we weren't going to reach otherwise with our buy here, pay here financing. And so this is why I think it's important to kind of,
we have a Facebook user that posted a comment, and I'd love your comments on it. One way to deal with it is inside your procedures handbook, set a price amount such as $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, whichever relates to you, that we can finance up to. Anything above that would become an outsourced financing or cash vehicle. I believe, I'm no expert, but I think that would make it legit.
Okay. Actually, what they said is legal. And
legal.
I'm,
sorry.
I'm not going to try to speak to any legal advice over here, but I would just say, I think what the attorneys have shared on our, I remember Steve Levine talking about this on a series or an episode of Tote the Note with Brent Carmichael once before, is that, having those things in writing as a guideline or whatever's good, but also having it in writing is putting you in a place where you better be sure it's legal. It's like,
Steve would say, put it in writing, put it in writing, put it in writing. And if you find that you have too many exceptions, then you need to change the rule on that. But
and just think about the thing that is happening when, again, this is speaking as a non-attorney, as a longtime business owner and current business owner. Like, when you put policies like that in writing, and then you end up with a disgruntled employee, and those policies are illegal in some way, then you can see the hazards that come from that. So again, not trying to offer
I've
a legal
also,
answer
with clients we've also seen, where there's a buy here, pay here, and a credit acceptance, and that it's not the total amount that this car is for sale for, but that decision is made sometimes based on how much they're in the car.
Yeah.
And so it just, just kind of, but it is the same price.
Yeah.
Either way.
I feel like I'm probably, I'm probably safe in saying this, that I think attorneys would say where the CFPB is concerned. And I've seen some of Steve Levine's, for those of you who haven't signed up for Ignite Consulting Partners email list, go to their website. I'm sure you can hop on their email list. Steve shares a lot of great stuff, on a regular email, blast or whatever. But
if you're not on his email list, get on it.
Yeah.
Because then I've seen some really great information.
Plus I've seen Steve share a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, for example. And so what I see in that is, for example, one of the things we have in our industry right now is some of the stuff that the CFPB is regulating, quote unquote, regulating, is just simple fairness. So like you got some gray area there. Like you hear Steve sometimes say we're looking for additional direction from the CFPB on, this what particular element of the rules. And so I think the point is that you're talking about regulating fairness. So maybe forget for a minute what's legal, think about what's fair and what's unfair. And then if we run things through that lens, then we can see how if we're doing things that might be construed as unfair, then we could put ourselves in the crosshairs. So
we had another a comment from Robert Blankenship. He says,
Okay.
we do this successfully. However, my buy here, pay here is 90% of what we do.
Mhm.
We have a bank only inventory section of our dealership, and we flip vehicles in and out of each lineup often.
Nice. Okay, good. Yeah, and I think Robert's somebody who's been in business long enough. He would understand the challenge of when you publicize price and you put a price out there, to buy here, pay here price, and then if somebody were to see, for example, a buy here, pay here price, and I'm not picking on you, Robert. I don't know how you do this, but it's just like if any dealer out there were to publicize a price for buy here, pay here, and then move that same car. So anybody could go to the web, screenshot the thing. 3 weeks ago, you were offering this car at this price, buy here, pay here, and now it's over here, at this price, cash.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that we're just saying, we got to be super careful about that stuff, because that's where we get into ourselves in some hot water, and or we have the potential to. And it's like I said, it's about what's fair and unfair, and so we just got to be watchful about that. And so I think for today, we're just simply suggesting it can be done on the same lot. We're just going to encourage some segregation.
Yes.
We're going to encourage, once you set a price, buy here, pay here, especially if that price has been publicized, don't change it. Now to drop it for buy here, pay here, of course, we can make a decision to offer a manager special and reduce the price. That's a different thing. It's still
or the
financing.
down payment or whatever.
Yeah. But when we start discounting it for cash, that we step into that dangerous area of this imputed. Is also, I didn't finish saying, the other phrases that you can look up is imputed interest, implied interest, implicit interest. Those may not all be the same thing, but just the idea, the premise is it looks like interest. If it smells like a duck, or whatever the expression is,
if it looks like interest, smells like interest, and barks like interest, it's interest.
Yeah. So that's the thing we got to be watchful of. And I just don't hear it talked about much. And again, we're not trying to give legal advice, but we know that's a thing. But we should probably wrap up there.
All right.
I think, again, you expect to hear this subject come back around.
Yeah, and it's an important piece. Before we go though, like Jim said, we're coming into, there's a lot of people that are trying to, how do we navigate, how do we weather the storm, how do we do these, and we have really a great opportunity to be able to do some great things during an economic downturn like this. I know, Jim, when we first started talking about buy here, pay here, probably the day that we met,
did you lose it?
I did.
Okay.
Dang it. Because I was thinking about the day we met.
While you, that's funny. So while you think about that, I'm going to remind folks that next week, kind of a continuation of the same theme. All three of our episodes for next week have been established. We got Monday. Gene Daughtry is going to talk about clamping down, that poll about clamping down on collections and kind of where we're at in this industry. And Gene and I, through his comments, I can see that Gene and I kind of share the same perspective on where we're at and what the next year or two might look like. And so we'll talk about that on Monday. Wednesday, we have Seth Merrifield from Alabama is going to join us and talk about his decision to lower his APR. And then Justin Wallman and maybe another guest. We've invited somebody else to join on Friday to talk about payment extensions. Okay, I thought you would.
I know, right? It's crap. I don't know if I haven't had enough coffee, but it did flow into, what Jim's talking about is, it was that this industry is the most recession resistant of any industry. It's because it's usually when you are dealing with a customer base that have lower credit scores, it just grows. I mean, our customer base grows, and we have an opportunity to be potentially more selective, and we have the opportunity of people that are going to be spiraling up because that whatever it is, the life circumstances has got them below that level. But one of the things, I don't know if y'all saw a post that Jim did, which was his notebook from when we went to the LHPH summit. And it was about, hey, write down the things that were most impactful to you from everything you've learned. And, one of the things that, and I wasn't in the actual classes, Jim was. I was out in the foyer kind of getting things, or the lobby getting things set up for the next interview. And but I was able to listen to what it was that the dealers that we talked about. And these were seasoned dealers. These are people that have been in and have weathered storms. And their approach to the industry and the customer was very similar. And it's about being good to your customer. It's about, being more flexible. It's about, just shifting where you need to shift. And so, we're going through that now. And there's a lot of dealers that listen to the show, or if you are a dealer that knows other dealers that could use a little bit of like some information, something that the podcast would help with, please spread the word to have them tune in or listen to the recordings, or find a mentor, find someone that has been around for a while and hear about their, what it is that they've done, how they've weathered their storms, because those very successful dealers that we talked to all had some major setbacks during their business. And so, during this time, if you're like, I don't know what to do, let's throw a bunch of spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. It's a good idea to listen to those that, we talk about 20 groups, we talk about going to conferences, just if you're finding someone that you are seeing them add their insight to different posts or questions or whatever, that you think like, oh my gosh, I really appreciate the advice of this, reach out to them.
Right. And I also want to add to what you said there, because I think what I didn't express well enough in the comments or that post that I did earlier was this idea that, keep in mind, we interviewed dealers with portfolios of $80 million and above. So, and
they didn't always have $80 million and above, though, but they had grown.
When I think about this one dealer in particular, the takeaway for me from that conversation was this idea of, they really value customer relationships. So the part of what you can see in their success is that they recognize and emphasize the value and importance of the relationship with the customer. And of course that extends to other relationships too, vendor relationships, et cetera. But what I'm saying is, this is a time to really get hyper focused on your relationship with your customers. We talk about it a lot, customer success.
And so when we think about lean in,
we got to be in communication with our customers. And so this will continue to be something we talk about. It's like it's about more than the numbers. It's like, we got to get in there and make sure we know what's going on with our customers and be there to kind of,
and if
solutions.
you listened to what we talked about with Russell on Wednesday, it was like, we're getting clamped down from our lenders and it hurts, and people are kind of scrambling and I
think you mean the industry. I think Russell said his lender was not.
Yes, but it was based on a Facebook post about lenders doing that, and that Russell's sweet wife was like, hey, aren't we lenders? And so when we clamp down, we're creating that same kind of emotion, but it's also with a clientele that, a dollar is worth a lot.
Yeah. And we're seeing dealers step away from the business. Obviously it can be stressful. It can be, if our delinquencies and our charge-offs spike, then we can find ourselves falling out of covenant or borrowing based problems. And so, we're seeing dealers step away from that. But I would just say that it's more important than ever. And this conversation we'll have a week from today with Justin Wallman and perhaps another dealer or two will be around, how flexible can we be? What makes sense without compromising, our whole, process and our enforcement strategy. Then how can we, get that in place? So again, it just all kind of ties, all these things tie to one another. So this is why you can kind of see, a theme, but just rest assured, as Michelle and I always say, our interest is in the success of dealers.
Absolutely.
And then the customers through that, when we can help dealers to be successful, then in our minds, successful customers equals successful dealers. And so this is why it all kind of ties together.
Well, it's kind of like that. It's to help articulate that it's good business. It's profitable business to be really good to your customer.
Yeah. So we're going to continue to work on that. We'll continue to bring experts to the to the microphone.
It's Friday
next week. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining. There was one last comment from Robert Blankenship that if it's probably on Success. It's a long one. So thank you everyone for tuning in and for offering your insight, and we just really appreciate the support we have.
Last, you mentioned Success. I would just say people who are listening, because the broadcast goes out, to all over the worldwide interweb. So if you're listening and you're not familiar, there's BHPH Success private Facebook group. Find that one. Ask to be admitted into that group if you're in the buy here, pay here industry. And then BHPH Boardroom, which is a different profile. So, you can look at that and see if it makes sense, to see if it's a fit over there.
And you can always go, and we encourage y'all to go to YouTube and Jim Rhoads Octane Group and like and subscribe, and then you're going to get lots of other content, but you'll also be able to see all of the past episodes, and it'll give you alerts when something new has come up too. So yeah. All right. Subscribe. I think that we're done. Are we done?
We're done.
We're done.
We're going about the rest of our Friday. We recommend you do the same.
Have a great Friday, Saturday in your dealerships, and enjoy the weekend. We will see you on Monday with Mr. Gene Daughtry. Thanks again, everybody, so much for joining us today. Have a great weekend.
Have a good one. See you Monday.
Bye.